Well, now it's time for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning with Dr. Constance Ikwoku. Good morning, Dr. Constance.
Good morning, Yolanda. How are you?
Good morning, Dr. Constance.
Good, thank you.
Don't let's forget to roll out the carpets.
Well, you roll out for me, I will roll out for you.
No, but I guess there's so much in the offing today.
I know there is. We all equally contribute to the bulletin. How was your weekend?
Cool, lovely, and beautiful.
Okay. I had a great day on Saturday. It was really nice.
Wow.
Dr. Constance, you
I can
always
imagine.
have a great weekend. Yeah, she always
Office
has
life
an amazing
is totally at
weekend.
variance with her social life.
Oh, please don't. Winga, keep quiet.
Okay. I will pop low the
Don't
volume.
say too much.
I'm offing my mic.
Please, off the mic. All right, good to see everyone this morning.
Likewise.
If you're just joining us, we'll be taking a look at the stories that are shaping the agenda in the paper review for you. We'll be kicking off with this day newspaper. Are Nigerians spoiling for a fight with the National Assembly over the electoral law? That's what today's headlines are saying. In light of this day lead story centers in what may be a rattled Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, who has now called an emergency sitting in the Electoral Act, or to discuss the Electoral Act, as the Nigerian Labour Congress and notable Nigerians kick against the Amendment Act. Moving to the states, in record upswing, Enugu grows internally generated revenue from 26 billion in 2023 to 406.7 billion naira. And Bank of Industry gets Central Bank of Nigeria's nod to float non-interest banking window. Daily Independent begins on a hopeful note with news that the manufacturing sector is on a path to recovery. Pension assets surge boosts a path to 185 trillion naira, and it contributes to the GDP. The Pope has asked Nigerian government to protect citizens in light of all the insecurity that we've seen in the last 1 week. Leadership, Tinubu scheduled to visit UK in March, and Governor Yusuf mourns as over 30 die in Kano road crash. Vanguard quotes sources as narrating how 3 Southern senators blocked real-time results transmission. Manufacturers record 1.8 trillion naira unsold goods as demand slumps. And Kano orders cancellation of Monday sit-at-home in the east. Federal government production data casts doubt over 2 million barrels per day 2026 target. New Telegraph focuses on the high level of insecurity with Borogo Emirate, Christian Association of Nigeria, and the Muslim community begging President Tinubu to end killings. Article, NNPC's admittance of Port Harcourt refinery unserviceable state belated. 13% derivation, oil-producing states shed 1.60 trillion naira in 2025. The Punch also leads with the electoral amendment standoff and Senate emergency plenary. The Guardian reports on a spike in Treasury bill as manufacturers face credit squeeze. Let's see the international headlines, beginning with the Daily Mirror. Nearly all front pages lead with one overriding story. Morgan McSweeney, Chief of Staff to Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, has resigned, taking responsibility for advising Starmer to appoint Lord Peter Mandelson as the UK's ambassador to the United States, despite controversy over Mandelson's ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The coverage highlights that McSweeney's departure is intended to calm the crisis, but it intensifies scrutiny of Starmer's judgment and leadership, with some MPs and commentators suggesting his premiership is now under threat or may end soon. So Daily Mirror blasts, "Blame me." That's the focus on McSweeney shouldering responsibility and stepping down. The Independent headline screams, "Starmer's Chief of Staff quits over Mandelson's scandal." Daily Mirror was saying that "Blame me." Metro.co.uk, Financial Times, and The Guardian all lead on McSweeney's exit and the pressure it places on Starmer's leadership. Our newspaper says McSweeney's exit only gives Starmer time, or he is buying time. Daily Mirror and Daily Express question whether Starmer's days are numbered. And Daily Mail has a mix of sensational political blame narrative and higher celebrity or lighter celebrity local content. Daily Star leads with a human interest story about Madonna attending and cheering on her twin daughters in a football match. Now let's return to this newspaper to see what all these stories mean for the everyday people. The Senate is holding an emergency plenary tomorrow amid poll results transmission dispute, and NLC threatens mass action over this same issue. There's also a group called the Movement for Credible Elections, MCE, which has endorsed a protest to occupy the National Assembly in regard to the same issue. MCE argues that by rejecting mandatory real-time electronic transmission of results, the National Assembly is subverting the will of Nigerians to freely choose their leaders. Prominent members of the group include Mrs. Obi Ezekwesili, Professor Patu Tomi, Usman Bugaje, and the rest of them. Akpabio over the weekend had boasted that the Senate will not be intimidated. Now he's called an emergency session for tomorrow, ostensibly to fight the fire. So what exactly are the lawmakers afraid of in real-time electronic transmission of results? And I mean, he has made a case that some parts of the country face technological challenges, but do you buy this argument?
Okay, first, a time comes in the life of every race when people are driven by the pains and future aspiration to chart a course for a common future. You said that someone is alleging the subversion of the will of the people, but I think there's beyond that, is subversion of the political future of the people. And I think the people are demanding an unequivocal real-time transmission of results. There are three tripods that reflect the electoral aspirations here. The need to check electoral fraud, the need to strengthen the capacity of INEC, and the need to enhance voter participation. A situation where about 27% of registered voters of Nigeria choosing their political leader is a sham, is atrocious, and is highly shambolic. I think that we need to change that narrative, and that is why concerned Nigerians, everyone needs to come out to stand that we cannot afford to slide into the pitfall of 2023. We need to give a voice in the shaping of our political future, because we know that the quality of our leader come 2027 will determine largely the quality of our lives.
Is that the only issue, though?
No, that's not the only issue.
More than that, but I'm just trying to put it succinctly.
I'm glad you question that, Dr. Constance, because I think what we're also seeing is that the Senate is trying to do damage control, obviously, by trying to have this emergency meeting. But one of the conversations that has come up is that, look, we're in an environment where there's this consistency of not having reliable connectivity and broadband. And so we need to start looking at whether there is a credible discussion in that as it is, because more of these votes come from these rural areas, which coincidentally have the worst broadband and network coverage. So that should be, considered during these conversations. What kind of inconsistency will ensue if we do not look at this factor as a main speaking point? And this comes at a time where, time is of the essence. The elections are next year. And is this really the time to be having this? Surely this type of technical problem is something that should have been done away with a long time ago. But look at us now, last minute, holding these kind of discussions, Senate pushing for emergency meeting tomorrow. This is something that should have been done a long while ago.
Senate President Godswill Akpabio, that's exactly his line of argument about technological challenges in some states of the Federation, and that if you use the word real-time transmission, then it sort of ties the hand of INEC. But if you remove the word real-time, then in such instances, it gives INEC the discretion to use other means in order to transmit the votes or the results. It's still electronic transmission. But what's happening here is that many Nigerians see real-time electronic transmission as the last firewall against result manipulation. And so this controversy just reinforces that public suspicion that the political class benefits benefits from opacity. They don't want any opacity. You know, it just widens the trust gap. They just want everything to be in black and white. Whatever the Senate president has to argue, they don't want to hear it. However, the Senate has, you know, keeps saying that this is something we need to really think about, which you have said. And I've heard people on a lighter note say, if you can do every other thing by electronic transmission, whether it's bank, you know, or paying your taxes, why can't you work to see that this particular issue is taken care of? You know, why is it rocket science in 2026 and then 2027? So the protest marks, or potential protest, because some say the protest will begin today, it marks a shift from post-election anger to pre-election, that is preemptive resistance against what the government is trying to do. So citizens are saying transparency must be built into this process, and we don't want any arguments after the results next year. We want, you know, to take a lead to make sure that our desires are met. So the Senate will still meet. The Senate president said it's not complete. The process is not complete yet. So people, hold on, hold your fire. There will still be other processes and discussions before the amendment is then finalized.
But is the NLC acting prematurely now with them pushing for these protests?
Premature?
Yes.
No, really. I think it just adds to the move to make sure that they do the right thing, or that they do what the citizens want. It's just part of it. You know, let's stay with this very quickly. A quick one on Enugu State growing its internally generated revenue from 26 billion naira in 2023 to 406.7 billion. That's what citizens want to see in all states, potentially strong, viable states that are able to stand without financial intervention from the center, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that it's so exciting and inspiring to see attention shifting to what's happening at the subnational level. That's the beauty of a true federalism, if you ask me. And I think that we need to commend Governor Peter Mba for that beautiful example that he has laid. Look at his gas reform, look at his coal reform, look at what he's doing even in education. So I think that that ability to transmit that windfall that we have seen, that we all analyzed last week, into concrete capital expenses and economic growth at the state level will be more impactful to the people than relying on this this cash and carry, cap in hand approach at the federal level, sharing the federal allocation. I think state governors need to take the lead. They need to take that proactive step in making an impact for the citizenry. It's not just relying at the federal level. That's not the federalism that was envisaged by our founding fathers.
All right, moving on to leadership newspaper. Tinubu scheduled to visit the UK next month. The president accepted invitation to pay a state visit to King Charles from March 18 to 19. He is reported to be the first Nigerian leader to be accorded such an honor in 37 years. The last time was in 1989 by military leader General Ibrahim Babangida. The visit would include high-level discussion with UK officials, ceremonial engagement, among others. You have to ask, Yolanda, is President Tinubu's state visit to King Charles about strengthening Nigeria's global standing, or is it more about optics abroad at a time when he faces mounting pressure at home?
You know, state visits are usually a symbolic move, especially when the host is the British monarchy. However, the reasons for this diplomatic move is irrelevant to most Nigerians due to what has been ongoing domestically with issues, with the economy. People just don't want to hear that the president has left the country. Now, the conversation before has always been focused on the fact that the country is facing economic hardship, but now the country is facing many more domestic threats in addition to that. So this move is, I think, generally being seen as unnecessary and insensitive to what is going on at this point in time. Will it yield results? Well, I don't know what kind of results it will yield, but it really is good for the optics, I must say.
Yeah, I would want to deviate a bit in the sense that UK would always remain Nigeria's strategic partner.
Yes, always
in
have
the
been.
international relations.
In what sense?
Yeah,
They
and
have
I, and
been
I, and
for a
I,
long
and I will
time.
tell you
Who
that.
gains most?
Yeah, let me explain.
Good
the
point.
UK is gaining
Good
most.
point.
We have a trade volume of about close to $10 billion. Nigeria with less than $2 billion trade comparative trade advantage, while the UK has about $8 billion. So UK is getting more. But where I fault this step is that it's meant to be a state visit, the first in 37 years, and that's where we should see the beauty, the run of play of diplomacy at the highest level. But now there's no ambassador yet to represent Nigeria and the UK. So who is going to follow up with the agreement, with the MOUs that will be reached? But when you look at the areas of interest, they are quite germane. We have areas of interest in climate change. We have areas of interest in the global financial architecture of the state. We have numerous areas of interest that are very key to Nigeria's economic growth. Even in areas of security, the UK stands as an ally to Nigeria, and both countries are key members of the Commonwealth.
Dr.
So
Constance.
I think that looking at this, but the need to give it a strategic muscle with the absence of an ambassador now, I think that will be, it's looking like a missed opportunity for Nigeria, if you ask me.
I mean, there is definitely symbolism in this visit.
Yes.
But the symbolism also cuts two ways, pros and cons. I mean, if the president had been looking for a signal of legitimacy from Western powers, he's going to get it now. Because what this visit does, even if it's ceremonial, it places Tinubu visibly within the circles of recognized global leaders.
Right.
For a president whose election was contested, whose reforms have been painful domestically, the optics matter. And for his 2027 presidential ambition, this is a powerful optic for him personally. Secondly, the visit also politically strengthens his image as a statesman. He's been, traveling quite a bit, but this one is the United Kingdom. It boosts his international standing and reinforces his image as a recognized statesman. And the president has been looking for this. His team have been looking for this. So the narrative we will see from now is that the so-called controversial reformer, no, it's true, the so-called controversial reformer that is battling economic hardship at home is now engaged in international diplomacy. So this helps his narrative and what his team has been trying to craft. On the other hand, it carries colonial and historical baggage. Critics may question, do we even need this symbolism at a time like this? Why is it that African heads of state have to go to all these countries? It's like they have given a pat in the back. What does this really deliver for their citizens back home? So the lesson here is that for the West, it's about interest. Values later, interest first. Whoever is the African leader, whoever is able to give them what they want, it's about deals. Whoever covers the strategic interests, whether there's human rights crisis at home, whether there is economic hardship, that is not the point. Whether there's crooked democracy like they're fighting for electoral laws now, that's not the point. If you are able to make a deal and you're able to cover the strategic interests, well, there will be a visit.
Yeah, and I think we should also mention migration. With about 60,000 Nigerians in the UK, I think it's quite symbolic that we need to think about our interest in that line too.
Right. Vanguard newspaper, manufacturers record 1.8 trillion unsold goods as demand slumps. Despite signs of macroeconomic indicators published by the federal government, Vanguard writes that the latest financial results of the manufacturing sector indicates significant pressures. Inventory surge, that's unsold goods, contradicts official claims of economic recovery. Raw materials are up 15.4%, industrialization efforts are weakened, and due to the rising costs, weak demand is squeezing firms across the country. So the question is, especially for people that are in that sector, what are these who are these strong macro indicators working for? Are they working for Nigerians? How are they impacting the real incomes of the ordinary man on the streets?
Yeah, I think the crisis in the manufacturing sector came to light sometimes in the second quarter of 2025 when that bold sectoral report came to light, and the manufacturing sector was came out with 1.6% being standing as the lowest sector in the Nigerian economy. And the problems are clear. Amidst these are cost of production crisis. We talk about amidst the volatility of the foreign exchange, and a nation, we cannot drive an economy without powering the industry. Every sector, from agriculture, manufacturing that we are talking about, depend on this power. So in a situation where they spend so much on the cost of production, that is what we get. So again, it also borders on the larger macro economic indices. We cannot import our way out of poverty.
No,
so it's a very deep crisis that we need to address urgently.
You know, I find it interesting that this is actually a direct opposite headline of what we see in the Daily Independent, that talks about manufacturing sector being on the path to recovery. I mean, it's quite an oxymoron at this point. The data from actually this report that we're taking now is that the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria shows unsold inventories have surged dramatically due to reduced consumer spending, which is quite sad. But an aspect that we don't often look at is that the manufacturers as well often take on loans to be able to offset their expenses in anticipation of what they're going to get back when consumers, you know, buy their goods and etc., etc. So this is quite an unfortunate report. I don't know which side to stand on now, because we are seeing two opposites. Some headlines are saying that, you know, the manufacturers are having a hard hit, and on the other hand, they're saying that we're on the path to recovery. So which one is it?
Well, I mean, I guess is the middle of the road. Both of them can be true at the same time.
Absolutely.
We're facing challenges while people are trying to draw themselves out. You know, there are bright spots here and there. It's not all 100%.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not economists, but when you speak to experts on this particular topic, they talk about the policy timing and transmission failure. So that means the government is doing all these things, you know, that is improving investor confidence, and there's, you know, great fiscal metrics. When you talk about monetary policy, subsidy removal, currency adjustment, all of these things, they say raise costs immediately.
Indeed.
You know, while in the long term, it promises gains, you know, productivity, increased wages and all that, but it takes a while, and sometimes it may never happen. It depends on how long this runs, and because we also live in a country where sometimes there's policy inconsistency, and then this government does what it wants to do. The next government comes around and rolls back whatever has happened in the previous government.
Indeed.
So all this over the years has a negative impact on the country. So at the end of the day, the common man on the street is the one that bears the brunt of everything that is currently going on.
Just to add to your beautiful submission, I think that the government, they know the roadmap out of these woods, and they've talked about even from the signing of the AFCTA agreement to boost regional trade, and they have also talked about they need to have these special economic zones where there could be cluster of industries, power these industries, and give them enough incentive to drive this sector. In that way, there will be job creation. It would also attract investment, and it will boost our FDI, if you ask me.
Let's take an international story. The Times this morning. Caught in the Mandelson and Epstein political storm, Downing Street Chief of Staff Morgan McSweeney has, you know, become its first casualty by resigning his position. In his resignation speech, he accepted responsibility for advising UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer to appoint Peter Mandelson as UK ambassador to the UK. This came days after Starmer described McSweeney as an essential part of my team. Lots of questions here, Yolanda. Does this give Starmer a breather? Is McSweeney being sacrificed to shield more powerful figures from the fallout of this scandal? Is this resignation enough? Accountability? Where does Starmer go from here? He seems to be in a very precarious, vulnerable position still.
Absolutely. And I think the answers to your questions are yes, 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 and no. The high level
yes, and no.
Yes.
Okay.
The high level resignations have already begun to roll in. And this is what we've expected, because I mean, Chief of Staff at Downing Street stepping down due to, you know, affiliations with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein is the right thing to do, because the public trust is at stake here. And when it comes to administrations and putting forward their priorities, definitely anybody who's affiliated with something that might mar the reputation of an administration needs to go with immediate effect. So, I mean, the immediate removal is a good thing. It's a step in the right direction. But unfortunately, this is just the beginning. I think we have not even begun to see the last of more embarrassing high-level step-downs. You know, we still have the Bill and Hillary Clinton admission that everybody is expecting. We're all waiting to hear the details and see what comes out of that. So yes, as well, this is a breather for Keir Starmer for now.
Temporarily,
yes. For now.
Yeah. I mean, if you follow the news over the weekend, former Prime Minister Gordon Brown had to publicly state that he regrets bringing Mandelson into his own government while he was in office. He said he was shocked, sad, angry, betrayed, and let down. Brown, you know, made Mandelson a peer and brought him back into government in 2008 after Mandelson had quit as an MP to become EU Trade Commissioner. You know, so he said he didn't know there were Epstein links here. Mark Swinley's resignation doesn't close this scandal.
Not at all.
He actually reopens
Yes.
it and makes it wider. So if a senior figure like him had to fall on the sword here, attention now shifts upward, not downward, you know. So who did what? Talking about judgment, talking about responsibility, accountability. And so what we're going to see is that the political hurricane has not ended. It just reinforces that instability, that Labour is in a crisis right now. They're not sure how to dig themselves out of that hole. And it's a tense political climate. You know, any quick word?
Indeed, it might just be a major determinant in discerning the UK's political future, and there are some far-reaching global implications on this too.
Right. All right, those were your headlines for today.